Miracles are special events that don't follow the typical patterns or rules or laws that we see in nature on a day-to-day basis. Some examples in scripture include God in the Old Testament parting the Red Sea so that the Israelites could escape their captors in Egypt. Some New Testament examples include Jesus turning water into wine, Jesus healing people instantly from things like leprosy and blindness, Jesus raising from the dead. There's plenty. You might be thinking, but miracles aren't possible. And this is actually a question of philosophy, not of science. Because if you remember, science is really just making observations about the natural world and then turning those observations into assumptions or what we call rules or laws for how it typically works. But in the same way that parents can set household rules, for example, 30 minutes of screen time per day for their kids, they can also transcend those rules without breaking them because they created them and maybe allow a kid to watch a full movie one day. In the same way, since God set up these rules, he can also transcend them from time to time, and we do see him do this typically for a purpose. I would argue always for a purpose, but sometimes that's explained in scripture, and we see those different purposes being to show his presence, to show us what he's like, what his personality is, to provide some guidance or provision or protection or salvation, to validate the scriptures so we can see that there's something more behind them. As Christians, we of course believe that Jesus coming into the world is a miracle since that's God coming into the world. And we see scripture actually explain the purpose there as well. You can read in Hebrews chapter 1, verses 1 through 3. It says, "In the past, God spoke to our ancestors through the prophets at many times and in various ways. But in these last days, he has spoken to us by his Son, Jesus, who he appointed heir of all things and through whom he also made the universe. Jesus is the radiance of God's glory and the exact representation of his being, sustaining all things by his powerful word." And then 1 John chapter 4, verse 9 says, "This is how God showed his love among us. He sent his one and only Son into the world that we might live through him." So there's some examples of not just the miracle, but also the reason. And in this particular case, it's to show us what God is like, to provide salvation. Miracles, to be effective as miracles, of course, are not common occurrences. But I am curious if you have experienced a miracle. If you have, I want to know all about it in the comments. You can also add any questions you have about Christianity or related topics in the comments, and I can try to answer them there or in a future video. And if Christianity is a topic you'd like to explore a little further, go ahead and check out my other videos. Go ahead and look at the books I've linked to in the description. And for more content like this, you can subscribe. Thank you so much. Bye.